You were selected to be a part of the premier group of Mariachi Spectacular All-Stars because you are considered a torch carrier of the mariachi flame. What does that mean to you?
To me, well, it's an honor to be identified as, I guess you can call it, an ambassador to the music. Putting it in that context, it makes me feel like I have a responsibility now to manage, right? To make sure that the music continues to grow, to make sure that it perpetuates through the generations coming up that are, whether it be a school or community group, and kind of just maintaining that line of discipline and respect, integrity of the music as I unfold as a, quote unquote educator and torch carrier of this music genre.
Tell us about your first experience with mariachi music. Was it part of your family, something you discovered on your own? Did you learn in school? Can you share?
My dad and my grandpa played guitar, when I was a kid and family parties and stuff like that. Although it wasn't a full mariachi, it was mariachi music, right? So they were playing like boleros and rancheras, which are subgenres of music types that exist within mariachi. And so I would say that was kind of like my first impression of Mexican folkloric music. And yeah, that was, they were playing at family parties and things like that. My dad used to play guitar for me when I was a kid. There's pictures, I'm in like the bathtub and he's playing, Cielito Lindo is a song that comes to mind. So I would say that was probably my first interaction, from a listening standpoint of mariachi music. When I saw first mariachi group, I was a kid and we went to like a church, they're called church kermeses, which are like fairs. And there was a local youth mariachi group from El Paso, Texas. And I remember we were walking by with my dad and my mom and they were just kind of listening to the music and looking at the group, and they said, "Is that something you'd like to do?" And I looked at them and I saw the like tight pants and the whole uniform, and I'm like, "No, that doesn't seem something that I'd like to try out." Lo and behold, 4 or 5 years later, I'm in that same suit that I was saying I'd never be in.
Was it at this time that you became passionate about the music, or did it come a little later on?
At the age 7, I started playing music. I used to go to Catholic school, and so I started playing guitar for the church. And so I would play on Friday Mass and Sunday Mass, and from there I started spinning off into like jazz at a local music school in El Paso, Texas. And then went on to classical music, and I just kind of started, diving into other types of music, where eventually I fell into mariachi in middle school. And I think it wasn't until I started traveling and to the mariachi conferences, making friends from all over the place that weren't from El Paso. I think that camaraderie kind of pulled me in, and at that point, I think I was hooked, per se.
How important do you think music exposure is to young children, and why?
I think it's extremely important. I think what it does is it helps the child's brain development, in the sense that, if your music is very goal oriented, right, you want to play it to a certain level, and so it shows you responsibility, right, and it shows you a work ethic and how to get there. And so at an early age, once you start figuring out music, you start going down the path of how do I figure this, how do I get from this point to this point, and you start becoming strategic in how you want to achieve your goals. And I think, as a kid, most people don't encounter that kind of problem-solving skill set until they're older. So the earlier on you can put yourself in that situation, I think that kind of sets them up for future success.
Have you personally witnessed any positive changes in any students you've taught?
I have. So one thing I'm proud to say is all my students, I think through mariachi, that's been their hook into staying in school, and because the school group requires them to get good grades to perform and do all the other activities, they've maintained a high level of academic, success. So past high school, all my students are now in college or have graduated college. So I think that's been one of the things that I'm, proud of.
Who do you consider to have the most influence in your musical career? Now, is that the same person that continues to inspire you today?
I'd say in terms of harp and mariachi, for sure I would say my original inspiration that kind of brought me to the forefront of wanting to continue learning and learning at a high level was Sergio Checo Alonso. He's the harpist for Mariachi Los Camperos in Aticano. And kind of the same thing what I had just mentioned, he kind of taught me, how to be responsible. If you want to play at a certain level, these are the things you got to do, and you got to hold yourself accountable. And so over the course of the years, I would travel from El Paso to Los Angeles to go study with him. And basically it turned into a relationship where he would show me a whole bunch of things that at that point in time I was not capable of. I'd go back to El Paso, study for months at a time, and then come back and show him, hey, this is what I learned from you, and we're ready to keep going to the next step. And so yeah, that's always been an interesting relationship, and through that, I was able to cover his spot for probably a good 4 or 5 years in that same mariachi. They're Grammy Award-winning Mariachi Los Camperos. Are pretty famous here in the U.S. and around the world. And yeah, I think that's been probably my ultimate source of inspiration in terms of mariachi and mariachi harp.
As a role model for younger generations, how do you hope to inspire this generation in the way musicians who are such a major part of the Mariachi Spectacular of Albuquerque may have inspired you?
More than anything is just, kind of chase your goals and chase your dreams and develop a plan. Plan the work and work the plan is kind of the way I structure it to them, right? And so I think if you're able to identify where you want to go, then part of the enjoyment of this music is learning to love the journey. So I think that's one of the main things I like to impose on my students is don't be good or don't do things because somebody's telling you to do it because you enjoy doing it, and because of that, the passionate portion of this music and performance becomes perpetual, and they'll have students and their students will have students, and it becomes a multi-generational activity.
Can you tell us, how did you select your instrument?
Like I had mentioned, I was kind of diving around to different musical genres, and there was a mariachi conference in El Paso, and the group there that was highlighting the mariachi workshops was Mariachi Vargas at Tecalitlan. And so the harp guy was just, off to the side. So there was guitar workshops, trumpets, violins, and guitarrones. And so all the other workshops had, 40, 50 students. And at that time, nobody really played harp in a school group or a community group. So he was kind of off to the side doing his own thing. And I heard him, I think, on a break or something. And to me, it kind of sounded similar to classical music in the sense that it's like a lot of finger plucking and things of that nature. So I kind of wandered off over there with him, and he started showing me a few exercises, and he pretty much told me, he's like, como que tienes facilidad, you have an easy ability to have potential to play the harp because of my classical guitar skills at that time, And so at that point, that's kind of where the curiosity led, and I bought a harp and I continued studying. But that was my first interaction with the harp, and probably the reason why I stayed to it,
Where do you see yourself as it relates to mariachi in 20 years?
I would like to continue educating younger generations and keeping the level of music high, teaching the kids to love and respect the tradition, and eventually just it's a good impact on a young student's life. So we can keep that cycle going from elementary all the way to college and beyond that. I think it's something that I want to continue doing in terms of 20 years beyond, things of that nature.
What piece of advice would you share with young people who want to start a career in mariachi?
Keep studying. Always study. Love what you do. Make friends, and just keep striving to play at the highest level. And you'll learn to love the journey and all the rewards that come with it.
How has mariachi impacted your life?
Completely. I think it's, my closest friends are because of mariachi. It's something that I always look forward to playing every weekend, whether it's gigs or rehearsals. I would say a large portion of my life, even professionally and personally, is dedicated to performing and teaching mariachi. My name is Adrian Perez, and I'm the harpist for the 2021 Mariachi Spectacular de Albuquerque All-Stars performing group.